Thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon on KARE 11 News Now. I am Chris Harapsky. Let's get straight to your headlines. Just in this afternoon, TikTok will live on in the U.S. at least for another 75 days. This is just in. President Trump just extending ban enforcement on the extremely popular app until at least the start of summer. TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company, was set to go dark in the U.S. tomorrow if it did not sell to an American buyer. In a social media post, Trump says the White House is working on a deal to save TikTok in the U.S., but that it needs more work. Biggest concern U.S. officials have with TikTok is privacy and data sharing. Another is the app's algorithm, which some believe could be controlled by China to influence Americans. Developing right now in Mexico, a spring break trip turned nightmare after Minnesotans witness a deadly shooting in broad daylight at a resort pool outside of Cancun. Here's brand new pictures after what police there are calling a drug raid at a resort. A mom from Wayzata tells us drug dealers aggressively approached her son and many of the other high school kids on their senior spring break trip there. Mexican authorities say they confronted two of the alleged drug dealers, who then attacked them. Officers opened fire, killing one suspect. All this happening just 25 miles north of the Cancun airport. Make sure to stick with us all day for more on this developing story. Another huge day of cleanup ahead across the South and Midwest after devastating storms tore through the area. Here's some drone footage right now from Indiana. You can see this rural neighborhood ripped to shreds, rooftops ripped from the tops of the homes, and trees down everywhere along properties there. Powerful. Further south in Tennessee, entire communities underwater after torrential rain and dangerous tornadoes battered the state for days there. Residents there being asked to hold on tight because more severe weather is on the way. One of the worst hit states is Kentucky. Nearly the entire state is under a flood watch until Sunday after a double whammy of torrential rain and strong tornadoes. NBC's George Solis in Kentucky now.
The rain keeps falling here in western Kentucky, and what's going to protect cities like downtown Paducah from imminent flooding? We're going to walk right through it. This flood wall here in the downtown area keeps the Ohio River here at bay. Now it's going to keep falling here over the next several days. No telling yet if this water here is going to come up to this level, but should it, the wall here will protect it as well as the floodgates that they will install should it get to that point. Now again, we're looking at a couple of days here of severe weather. The other story is the storm damage caused by the tornadoes in McCracken and Ballard counties. We now know from the National Weather Service an EF2 tornado touched down in this region, leaving a path of destruction, including at two churches. We know in Ballard County, an 8-year-old child was injured after the family sought shelter underneath a church carport. We're still awaiting update on how that child is doing. Officials still bracing everyone here to not let their guard down because, again, this weather is still coming, that rain is still coming, and flooding in this area is going to increase over the next several days. Back to you.
Stock money, U.S. stock market still in the red today, reacting to new tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on basically every country that trades with the United States. You can see the Dow Jones right now down another 4% after losing 4% yesterday as well. It is down about 1,700 points at midday. Today, China retaliating, placing a 34% tariff, a counter tariff, on goods coming into that country from the U.S. President Trump digging in, insisting that taxes on imports will do good for the economy here and restore American manufacturing in the long term. The initial dip in the market has some worried about their retirement accounts, how much prices are going to rise on everything that we buy. Today, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, saying the tariffs will likely raise inflation for now, meaning prices across the board will likely go up. But the Fed's long-term inflation forecasts have not changed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was visiting the NATO headquarters in Belgium, says it's time to rethink the order of trade around the world. While Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar says we've seen this before from Republican leaders.
We're the largest consumer market in the world, and yet the only thing we export is services. And we need to stop that. We need to get back to a time where we're a country that can make things, and to do that, we have to reset the global order of trade. The worst thing is to leave it the way it is forever. I mean, this just can't continue. We can't continue to be a country that doesn't make things. We have to be able to make things to provide jobs for Americans.
So here we are again. Same trickle-down theory, just repackaged with even more debt and even fewer benefits for the middle class. As noted, the debt, this budget, the Congressional Budget Office estimates it would add $37 trillion to the debt over the next 30 years. $37 trillion on the backs of our kids, grandkids.
New jobs report showing stronger than expected hiring in March and a slight increase in unemployment as well. Healthcare and transportation are two of the sectors that saw the largest increases. The numbers from March also showing hourly wage growth slowed down and temporary layoffs eased. These new tariffs are expected to hit a wide variety of industries. Now we're hearing from Minnesota farmers and agriculture leaders about the potential impact. Jessica Hart here with more on their concerns and the uncertainty ahead.
Life on a farm is unpredictable.
It's been some tough sledding the last couple of years.
Dan Glessing is a dairy farmer and the president of the Minnesota Farm Bureau.
Commodity prices have been challenging the last 3 years, probably 2 to 3, and those margins are very, very tight.
Tight margins he doesn't want to shrink. On Wednesday, President Donald Trump announced sweeping new tariffs on nearly all imported goods. Other countries are expected to implement retaliatory tariffs.
We're going to try to support our farmers as much as we can.
Tom Peterson, the commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, says a third of the state's crops are exported.
And so my concern is that what the reciprocal tariffs will look like from some of our bigger trading partners. And if some of our trading partners that we've worked years to develop relationships, they'll go and look somewhere else.
What's unnerving is the uncertainty.
Some people may feel effects of tariffs tomorrow. Others may not feel them for 6 months to a year.
Realistically, we don't know how long they're going to be on. That's probably the most unsettling part of it. The duration of them is kind of the key to how much of an effect it has on our bottom line.
It's hard for them to predict what the bottom line will look like when they don't know what's coming next.
New developments involving critical public health funding. A U.S. district judge issued a temporary restraining order that immediately restores more than $11 billion in federal pandemic relief funds. That includes more than $200 billion allocated for Minnesota. But cuts to critical services have already started happening here at home, and people are being laid off. Sammy Salina went down to Mankato to check in with health workers who say if the cuts ultimately go through, they'll hit those who need help with mental health.
Whatever you're going through, you shouldn't have to go through it alone. That's what Hassan Kafi Noor reminds Omar Kolate. Omar was paired with him through WellShare International's mental health education program. He was having a hard time, and a friend told him about Hassan, a community health worker.
He's number one. Really, in here, even trust with everything, I'm trusting him. No one else.
The program offers holistic mental health help for free through people like Hassan throughout the state. They hold classes to teach coping skills and meet individually with clients. But as they fill their empty stomachs, Hassan contemplates what gaps in healthcare will soon emerge.
We're just completely deficit spending at this point in order to ensure that people's care is not interrupted in this manner.
Evan Curtin is the executive director of the small nonprofit of 40 employees. Last week, he learned 20% of his nonprofit's funding will be cut because of the federal order to halt COVID relief funds. They used most of that $320,000 for their mental health program for rural and underserved communities.
It's addressing mental health needs, the effects that the pandemic caused with the communities that we're serving.
It's not good if you don't have a job, you don't have money to rent.
Omar was out of work during the pandemic.
Health is okay, but I have something loose in my mind. Because when you're thinking everything every night when you go to sleep.
He continued to struggle, but Hassan helped connect him with health and job resources so he can get to a better space mentally.
We try to move people up Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
The goal is to help people before they need expensive services. But in a few weeks, they will need to cut preventative care mental health classes and scale down their program.
It means that there are a lot of folks who are going to have bigger issues down the line.
To not abandon current clients, they're going into deficit spending.
My heart feels so bad, actually. I don't know, the thing is, these people, they don't have anywhere else to go,
Omar says he can't rely on family. Hassan is the one person he can turn to for guidance.
I need about him just to stay here helping people. Yeah.
And without services like this,
the time is hard to me, and everything is gonna be going the way.
There will continue to be a need that won't be filled. Sammy Solina, KARE 11 News.
At the state capitol today, it's do or die for policy bills. They need to pass committee to stay alive this session. The Equal Rights Amendment and End of Life Bill are two pieces of legislation that have been introduced in previous sessions but failed to make it through. The Equal Rights Amendment, Minnesota voters would decide on amending the Constitution to explicitly protect against discrimination based on race, gender expression, and pregnancy. Supporters say there aren't safeguards for these classes. Opponents claim the bill infringes on protections for unborn children and religious expression. Another bill up against the 5 p.m. deadline guaranteeing terminally ill patients the right to use medication to end their own lives. The DFL-backed legislation has little chance of passing the House, where Republicans hold a tie. Major appropriation and finance bills have an extra week until April 11th at noon to pass committee. Next Friday, the legislature will break for Easter and Passover until the 21st. After that, it's a race to the finish. The session ends on May 19th, and this year, the legislature must pass a 2-year budget. If they don't meet that deadline, the governor can call a special session to finish it. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.